So today I'm going to give you guys something special. I normally don't share the homework assignments or tutorials, exclusive tutorials that I give only to the syndicate members in the private group. But today I'm going to break that rule and give you guys an actual assignment and a tutorial that I actually recently gave to the members. And the reason for that is because this particular skill set that I'm sharing with you in this tutorial video is so crucial. It's literally like do or die. It's going to make or break your entire licensing career if you don't know how to do this. And the skill is how to break apart a reference track, okay? So if somebody is going to offer you a gig, a library is looking for some music for an album, a music supervisor wants something for or an ad agency wants a track for a commercial, they're 9 times out of 10 going to be able to give you some reference tracks or some ideas of what kind of music they want. And then when you get these reference tracks, the better you can break them down, analyze them, pull apart all the really valuable information out of them to make sure that you can deliver something in that same spirit and emotion and mood, that's what's going to make or break your entire career. You're basically going to get more gigs, you're going to please the client more often, and then they're going to come and call back, get more work from you as soon as possible. So I think this is so important that I think everybody in the licensing business needs to know how to do this stuff. So that's really why I'm sharing this with you today. This is not something, again, that I do normally. So what you're going to learn here as you watch the video, I'm going to exit myself from this video and you'll see the other version of me. Where am I? Over there. And then you're going to see how this all works. But basically, I take a reference track from one of our current opportunities, I break it down, and I show you how I look at a reference track, what I'm listening for, what kind of mental notes or maybe even physical notes that I would be taking before I even start composing my first track. One of the big mistakes you might make in this industry is you get a gig, you get an opportunity, you get some reference tracks, you listen to them for 5 minutes, and then you just go start making music. It's kind of a no-no. You should basically sit and live with a reference track for a little while before you decide how you want to compose your track. But I explained more of that in this video. So I'm going to get out of here now, and I hope you enjoy this tutorial video. All right, guys. So Happy New Year again. And I want to start this year with something kind of new. So in this group, we've been doing these homework assignments where I basically give you a task to complete, a specific task, and then at the end of the week I go through and review them. I'm going to try something a little bit different this time. This is going to be part tutorial, part me walking you through this exercise, and then also part you going and completing this exercise and then basically doing this on your own, okay? So this is basically what this assignment is going to be. So we're going to basically practice in this tutorial how to pick apart a reference track, okay? And what we're going to do, because Trevor's opportunities are still currently going on, is we're actually going to go pick apart one particular track of the references that he that he provided for his opportunity. So I pulled them up here and I just chose the first one that I don't know if it was the first one that was in the playlist, but it was just the first one that caught my ear. It's Jonas, Looking for You, okay? So actually I'll pull this up here so you can kind of see Jonas, Looking for You right there, okay? So with this track, basically, as you get into the licensing business, you're going to get reference tracks. It's definitely with the opportunities that we provide, if we can provide them. Sometimes it's out of our control. We can do the best we can. But for albums that I'm personally putting together or what Trevor's putting together, we will always provide for you guys specific references to follow. So this is kind of connecting to the chat that Trevor and I had just a couple days ago, actually just yesterday, about these common mistakes that that many of you are making, and that's the reason why you're constantly getting these rejection notices. And we want to make sure that you get those rejection notices less and less, because we want obviously as many high quality tracks as possible. We know you want to get accepted as much as possible, so we're going to try to bridge the gap here a little bit with these kinds of exercises. All right, so I'm going to first outline what the assignment is to choose one of the references that Trevor has given for his feel good hip hop assignment, okay? So even if you're not doing Trevor's gig for hip hop, you should definitely still do this, okay? Because this is just going to help train your brain, your ears. It's going to help you go through this exercise in terms of how to pick apart a reference track and know exactly what you should be looking for when you're putting together yours, okay? And you should always be doing this before you compose one track, you put together one album, track in your DAW. Before you do anything creatively, you should just first be listening, writing notes, taking notes, actual physical notes, either on your computer or writing them down, whatever. Actually going through this exercise before you do it, okay? So I'm going to now pick apart this track. So here's what I think you should do. Just my recommendation. You don't have to do this. But if you'd like to, you should go through this exercise before you watch the rest of this video. Okay, so what you should do right now is pause this video after I'm done explaining this and go through one of the tracks, any one of the reference tracks from Trevor's Feel Good Hip Hop Opportunity. You go to the pin post, click on the link, you'll find the references that he's provided. There's a YouTube playlist. Find one that you like or that you're interested in, and basically go through and try to pick apart everything that's like notable or noteworthy about it, okay? You should go through it first, and then when you're done with that, come back to this video and hit play basically from here on. And then basically compare how did you do it to how I'm about to do it, okay? So that's what I think is the best way to do it, because that way you can go through, you kind of pick apart what's going on with the drums, with the synths, with this, and the structure of the track and all that kind of stuff. What's happening here? What's making this track work as a reference track? And then sort of compare the way that you went through it with how I'm about to do it. And then you can kind of get the best of both worlds. Maybe you did something that I didn't do. Maybe I'm going to do something, picking it apart, hearing things that you wouldn't have picked up on. So that's the challenge. And that's basically what this is kind of like a hybrid of partly a tutorial. I'm going to show you how I do it. Also, I want you to do this as well. So if you're going to do it that way, this is a good time to pause the video. All right, so let's get started now that hopefully you've gone through this exercise and we can kind of get this going. So I'm going to just hit play, and I'm going to basically just walk you through what I'm hearing, the very specific things that I need to pull out of this track and duplicate and emulate essentially in my song to make sure that I'm following this reference very closely. So let's go.
Check, check. Can y'all hear me?
So let's just start with that guitar organ sound in the beginning. Now remember, we're not putting vocals on our tracks. We need to keep our tracks very just instrumental. So even though this track might, I don't know if it loops a lot because there's vocals on top, maybe it does, but we need to, even though that's our reference track, we need to make sure that our tracks breathe, move, change up every about 8 bars or so. Something new needs to be coming in, a new kind of a feeling that kind of just adds to the track as we go along. So just keep that in mind. The reference tracks aren't necessarily like you copy the instrumental stuff that's going on there, because they have vocals on top that it's keeping the interest moving along. If you took away the vocals of this track, this might be a really loopy, boring track, and that's not necessarily going to work in the TV film world. So that put that caveat aside, but let's just listen to this thing. It's basically a guitar.
Check, check. Can y'all hear me?
It's definitely a guitar because I can hear the strumming of it. So it might be a loop, or it might be somebody that actually recorded it. But what's interesting about it is it's like being played through an organ synth, or maybe just a kind of a lightly distorted amp. But it definitely has this like organ feel to it. And I almost like hear Beach Boys sound in that guitar right there. So if you remember from the Beach Boys, that dun 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 dun, their kind of like signature organ sound. I'm hearing a little bit of that happening here in this. So it's got a little bit of that pop feel, that kind of throwback, like surf vibe actually going on in this little guitar sound. Musically, the guitar is a combination of short rhythmic patterns and like a long note. Bump, 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 bump. So it's kind of doing these like, short staccato hits, and it's got these sort of syncopated bump, bump, and then a long note or whatever, but it feels good. It's kind of like an upbeat pop progression right there. So I'm going to try to stay in that lane when I compose my if I were to do this. I'm not going to actually compose probably for this song, but if I were, my guitar loop, or if I'm going to perform guitar, it needs to have those qualities to it. Okay, then there's also this kind of buzzy synth in the high end with this tremolo effect. And I don't really like that. I probably wouldn't use that.
Check, check. Can y'all hear me?
So, but I definitely notice it's kind of like this tremolo, or maybe even 16th note. It has this tremolo effect, and it's just kind of dancing on top of, but it's really quiet, and it's taken all the low end out of it. It's really high up there. So if you were to use something like that, that would be maybe the sort of quality of another synth you could throw on top of it. But I definitely now hear these tambourines.
If I can tell deep inside that you want me to come and find you. It's light work, baby.
Simple 16th note tambourine. That's definitely just a loop somebody threw into this track. Okay, very easy. It's not that wet. There's not that much reverb on it.
I know what you said. I can't get it out my head.
Okay, that transition right there. What happened? Pause. Dun, 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 right? So when you're thinking about putting your transitions together, use the ideas that are right there in front of you, how to make it interesting, right? But of course, you don't have the vocals to fill some of those gaps, so you're gonna have to put in a swoosh, a riser, a drum fill. You got to get creative. That's where you have to fill in the gaps sometimes in this business. It's not always just completely laid out for you. But now let's go into the drums as I kick in.
Yes, I'm looking for you. Hey, I'm looking for you. I see you over there, girl.
Okay, so just listening to that kick and snare, the kick has got this low end thud knock to it, but it does have a high end crispy attack on the high end. So definitely it's punching through. The snare is, it slaps, but it's really kind of more in the high end. It's not like a really deep, low thuddy snare. It's kind of like a really high end snare, but it definitely attacks. It definitely has a hit to it, a punch to it.
I'm looking for you. I see you over there, girl.
It feels like a maybe it could be a series of combinations of claps or smacks or something like that. And it's got a little bit of a reverb tail to it, but not a lot. But it's just nice and clean, and it's just kick, snare, kick, snare. Now listen to the patterns of the kick and snare together.
Hey, I'm looking for you. I see you over there, girl. Do you look for me too? I can tell that champagne. Let's get it on. Yeah.
So it's kind of like a little bit varied, but it's got a little bit of that swing to it. Sometimes it takes a break. You'll hear 2 snare hits without a kick in the middle. That's the kind of stuff that you should start paying attention to. What's going on with these drums that make them feel fun and upbeat and modern and interesting? Listen to the swing, listen to the patterns, listen to all that stuff going on. That's why pulling in tracks like this directly into your session can actually you'll start seeing that stuff. You'll start hearing like, oh, their drums really do have these little swing moments. And that little swing in the kick makes all the difference in making this sound really cool and fun and upbeat. There were some other things going on with the...
Expect me to do. I'm looking for you. Yes, I'm looking for you. Hey, I'm looking for you. I see you over there, girl.
Okay, there's a low 808 that's basically mimicking the guitar lead. Or whatever the notes are doing. So getting an 808 plugin or an 808 a synth that can deliver you those nice low 808 clean tones, that's going to be something you have to have. You've got to go for that low deep thing if you want this to be sort of legit in the hip hop world, right? So that's definitely something I'm hearing. But now the 808 is not like doing exactly the same. You notice it kind of goes up and down. It does some kind of interesting things. It's kind of singing its own melody, you know, that complements the
I'm looking for you. I see you over there, girl. Do you look for me too? I can tell that champagne. Let's get it on. Yeah.
So on some of those boom, boom, it's not just saying dun, dun the whole time. It's going boom, bum, bum. You know, it's kind of it's getting a little bit creative with how it does it. So that's the same thing with what you need to do with your 808. Don't just follow note for note what your lead guitar is doing, but kind of make it sing, get it a little bit interesting, experiment with some different melodies and stuff, and make it just have its own sort of voice on the track.
Good time in the air, can you feel that? Got a drink, no ice, can you chill that? I play find me with a feel that. Got no time for the noise, can you kill that? New school style.
Having a little like stop like that, right? You could do something like that in your
Old
track.
school soul, hard not lifestyle, fresh cut. And you know my quotes. I fill the world up with so much dope, but I fill the world up with so much hope. So there's contradictions and all.
So it looks like they pulled, at some point, they pulled that guitar lead out of it. So it was just the drums and the bass. So you could have that as kind of a verse, bring that part back in. I do think on this track, we'll listen to more, but you're going to have more than just like a lead and a bass. Like I think you should have probably a third element, which would be kind of chords, you know? So you have a bass, that 808, you have the lead, which is your guitar and organ thing, but then you also need something like chords that are maybe like a synth or, I mean, there's a lot of things you could do here, but that's, again, these are where you need to kind of fill in the gaps to find something a little bit more creative, because this is a very stripped down, minimal, easy beat that's just kind of being looping all over the place with the vocals. But without vocals, you've got to add more to make it more interesting, to make sure that it can evolve, it can go somewhere. If you only have a few things happening in your track, it's really hard to go anywhere with it. Either that, or you need to now, okay, so this is your A section. Now do a new guitar lead, a new section, and you're gonna have to do a new bass and all that kind of stuff, and that can be now B. So you kind of work on developing the A section for like a minute of your track, break it down, go down to a minimal B section, and build up the B section till the end of the track. I mean, there's a lot of ways you can do it, but you got to keep it moving forward, right? No copy and paste.
My notes, fuck that, throw the steaks on the grill, nigga. Got the whole world fucking with a real.
And that cool little breakdown right there, bum, bum, bum. You can have the whole band with the crash cymbals and the kicks. Right, that just breaks up the rhythm a little bit. It breaks things up.
And there's really no reason to fight. Well, cause tonight is alive. I can tell deep inside that you want me to come and find you. And I know what you say. 1986, 85, 84. Put your lighters in the air for me one time while I'm looking at all that flesh. So dim the what you said.
Here we go.
I'm looking for you.
Okay, so my idea here, if I were doing this track, this is what I would do. Because I'm like, okay, there's not a lot going on here, right? So this is really one of those you have to fill in. Now, that little part where you go in, ooh, sorry, my throat is destroyed right now, and I can't sing anyway. So, but that little cool sound, that melody he did with his oohs there. That is a really great, and it almost sounded like a synth, didn't it? So if you could go find a synth with a little bit of that fuzzy, lo-fi, really kind of overblown, kind of blown out sort of sound, you could make some cool melodies like that. Boo doo 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 doo. So it's kind of like a pseudo vocal lead or another element you can throw on top of your chorus or a B section or whatever it is. So that would be where I'm looking for, like, what kind of sounds would complement this. If I were going to add more synths, more instruments to this, what's already kind of singing to me in this reference track that I could get inspired by to throw into my track? Okay, so that would be one thing I would do.
I can tell that you do. I'm looking for you. I'm looking for you. Hey, I'm looking for you. Hey.
Now remember, even if a reference track has kind of like this sort of just, it stops in the middle of nowhere, you need to make sure you're hitting your tracks on a downbeat on the 1. I mean, at least for all of my opportunities, I believe, I might be wrong, but I believe Trevor has that recommendation too, or requirement, that you got to give us a hard sting out. Dun, 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 bum. And basically you always want to end probably on the root chord, something that feels like it's resolved. We're not kind of waiting for some other note to drop so we feel that resolution. So give us a kick, give us a crash, give us all the musical instruments hitting at once. Bam, you know, get us right back to the end so we have this nice way to get out of the track if a music supervisor or an editor needs to. Okay, so structuring now, I mean, of course, this is a 3 minutes 19 seconds. It's longer than pretty much what you need for our opportunities. We're normally keeping you in the 2 to 3 minute long range. So again, you might not use this exact structure. This is kind of probably more a verse, chorus, verse, chorus, verse, chorus, and it's over. So you might want to do, like I said, you do a verse, a chorus, you maybe go to a B section, right? Go to that verse and that chorus. Then maybe you have a breakdown, you kind of go into a more of a rhythmic, just drums for, 4 or 8 bars. I mean, you can get really creative with that. And then you probably always want to end typically on the biggest chorus, right? So this is a chorus that adds that like lead, that synth that we were talking about at the very end. Maybe you now throw in, you can throw in some strings, or you can throw in acoustic guitars. I mean, you can make this thing kind of big, larger than life, but make sure it all sings and works together. It feels like it belongs in this world. And again, if I had to put this, like if I had to like categorize this track into one place, I'd say it's like, it's Beach Boys hip hop. That's really where I'm at here. This is where this feels, okay? So if the Beach Boys did hip hop, this is basically what I would hear them doing, okay? So if that helps you kind of steer where my mind is going and maybe where your mind can go, that's how I see this stuff. And those are the little patterns as I went through this video. That's what I'm picking out to go, what do I need to do for my track? Make it sound fun, make it sound upbeat. Even including like, okay, what's the BPM about of this? So let's hear it.
Good time in the air, can you feel that? Got a drink, no ice, can you chill that? I play find me with a feel that, got no time.
A lot of times I don't even go find the exact BPM, I'm just doing this. I go to my Logic Pro and I'm like, I find the BPM that matches this. Just about it. Doesn't about to be perfect, but that's about where I want to it feels good, it's moving forward, it's kind of in this sort of feel good lane, right? So making sure you're kind of following the BPM, following the sort of speed of the track is probably step one. I should have started there. And then of course, like the, major minor, is it upbeat? Is it sad? What's the rhythm like? What are the melodies doing? What are the chords doing? That's what you need to start really paying attention to. So I think this kind of a exercise can maybe help you guys see where my mindset's at. I know this is definitely what Trevor does as well when he listens to reference tracks and kind of wants to make sure that he's nailing the gig and all that good stuff. So hopefully this helps you see how we're doing it, and maybe this can give you some ideas moving forward for how you should be doing it as you definitely submit to this opportunity, what Trevor has going on right now, including his pop one. He has pop references, same process, including the ones that I'm going to be sharing with the group here in the next week or so. So this is definitely something you definitely need to practice. It's just one of those things like riding a bike. You're not going to be that great at it in the beginning. You might not know really what you should be listening for, but just do it over and over again. We're going to do these probably more consistently to give you guys more practice, making sure you can nail those references.